create a mask, and just I've already done a path based off. I used a few of the segment IDs, but then just end up having to draw the path because, again, it doesn't always work. I mean, the pink moves over. It's, it works great for some things, but it's not always great. Anyway, sometimes quicker just to draw a path. So fill that, invert that. Okay, so you can see that where it is, I need to shift the perspective, bring that perspective up a little. But you can see the height of my things are a little different, so maybe I won't really fiddle with that. I'll probably just extend the gutter. Get down. Anyway, that's fine for the moment. So first up, I'll probably just remove the railing. Here you got, lots of choices, clone, paint, whatever. I'm going to start painting this out. So I'll just use my kind of favorite brush, which is one of those good brush ones I've posted the link to. I think it's like Good Brush 6, it's just a nice textured brush. And literally I'll just quickly go through and paint it. Or as I said, clone it. Depends, I'll do bits of both really. Cloning gives you a nice bit of texture, but you don't want to over clone because you can see cloning marks through it when you don't have enough information to clone. So that's why it's good to paint. And just pick colours from wherever you're coming from and going to. Move clone, etc. So I won't do all that now. Jump through. Same here. Obviously getting the perspective on the sandstone cuts is important, because if you clone down here, keep going down, etc., perspective won't shift as it should. It's not a huge shift here, but you've got lots of choices there. I tend to I'll probably just paint this, and literally just redraw some lines. They're just pixels at the stage right now. Make sure you get kind of follow your shadows, and as usual, it'll get darker as it goes to the bottom. There's more light coming in the top. Then for the end bits, I'd use a soft brush just to kind of blend in the shadows better. But for example, then you can actually just sit there and draw your lines. And just keep building it up, really. Okay, just to jump forward a bit, I've basically spent the last hour or so texturing up this building. All the same kind of methods, some photo, some painting. I'll just quickly kind of go through the layers. It's all really just just texturing. So, there's that extended one. Now, depending on the lighting in your scene, I kind of usually flick between overlays or soft lights or hard lights. So, because you've got a basic lit building underneath, you can work to normal, but this is what I was talking about before, where it didn't matter that it's too bright, because, on overlay, it gives me the desired effect, I guess. So then I'll kind of make up these textures, and, that wall's flipped off that, and, some of this grit's really nice. It's just building stuff up from photos. Down here, there's like an old, and it's like a way too large a scale wall of old white paint. But, when it's kind of pushed back to nothing, and then I've also just kind of drawing little shadows, so, and then that fine detail stuff, here and there, just little kind of, I guess, high frequency details or whatever, that's what really sells it. Because once it's back there and it's moving, it when it's flat like that, it doesn't sell as well as if it's got little details, I guess. So, but yeah, as I said, I'm just kind of keep. I should be off. Just still texturing up. Yeah, obviously I need to tie it all together a bit. And the colouring is not quite working. It still feels a little kind of stuck together. So yeah, I'll just keep working on that, and I'll start texturing other buildings. And yeah, I'll just press pause and jump forward a bit soon. Okay, so I've just jumped forward a bit. I've now basically cleaned up the file a bit, and I've put on some textures for the right and the left buildings. Now, using the same methods I used really for here, there's just base kind of photos, and I'm finding out what works. I mean, there's not too sure about the orange on this, but I really want to add a little bit of color to it. I don't want it to be all completely kind of grey blue. So, it's a bit of nice contrast to have a bit of reddish. We'll see though. But here you can see, I've started to add some cracks, and it's those little bits that really sell it, because by the time you grade it down, you lose a lot of kind of the important or the little details that you've done, but you need to be able to see this, like I said, the kind of high frequency stuff. Not that I guess a matte painter is always doing the grading, obviously, but you kind of still know where it's going to be heading to. So you know if it's foggy, or you'll know if it's kind of out of focus, etc. So, and then the building over here on the right, same again. I mean, I'm not going to go over. I'm not obviously not finished. I've still got bits to do. But now I just want to talk about some of the challenges, I guess the issues I came across. So what I'd done is when I got to this stage, I rendered out a quick time of the where is it? A quick time of where it was at, just with a little kind of little grade over it in the sky and everything. So I'll loop that. Okay, so obviously you can see the patch cams haven't been done yet. Now, but what I want to talk about is the issues of, I guess, perspective and what happens to the projections. So the foreground, you can see. I mean, the foreground's a good example. It's not something I've textured up properly yet, but it's the case of that this area is so close to camera that by the time you get up to, I guess, here, and I've also cropped this to like more of a 185, but you can see how much it's stretching here because the information from here isn't there. If that makes sense. So, that's anything that's close to camera, and grounds I always find troublesome. They are going to be an issue. And same again for this building, because we've moved so far. I mean, you can see what works well. These kind of mid-ground buildings, and obviously anything in the distance will be even better. But these mid-ground buildings that, they don't rotate that much, but the textures, they work for that case. Although there is an issue here where in the primary projection, I'll show you if you can see in here. Try and find a good example, maybe in the ambient occlusion. So that edge there, because that's visible in this angle, it's not going to be something that's occluded or come up in a separate projection, which ideally is what you'd want for that. So the way I'm going to resolve that is actually really just bring the polys further in. The other various ways you can do it, but that's pretty much the simplest. So, it's a non-issue. Let's just fix it, whatever, I guess is the quickest way possible, which is, really the whole point of these. So yeah, but I mean, the main kind of issues I wanted to talk about with the ground and this building here, because, A, there's the perspective is not right by the time it gets to the end of the shot, but B, if we're using a texture like this, which is kind of these sandstones, that edge is far too straight. So that needs to be sculpted. Now there's, various ways you could do it. You can do it in ZBrush. There's a few edges actually. The gutter here at that back edge, and probably the gutter here. But I mean, you won't see it till you've got all the textures on. But that one in particular, I'll cover now. And the ground, which I've, basically the way I would attack the ground is using a kind of completely separate projection system that uses user-defined masks with the map painting toolkit. So you'll have, a camera that works for this foreground, maybe somewhere like that that's pulled back a bit. Then you'll have one for the middle stuff. Then you'll have one for the gutters. Or maybe you've got one over here somewhere, because you can see the stretching there again. There just isn't, from this angle, there isn't enough information in that perspective for when it's up here for it to work. And it's not something that can be used from an occlusion in the map painting toolkit, because it's seen from the first angle. So that's where, you got to kind of use a separate approach. So that's kind of where that's at. What I'll do is I'll just jump into Maya now and talk about how I'm going to solve these issues. Okay, so now back with our scene in Maya. I'm just going to look at how I'll deal with those edges. So first up, we're going to start with this building. Now what I need to do is basically assign the current map painting as a projection from the primary projection back onto it, using Surface Shader, and then view it in the hardware texturing mode, so I can see where I need to kind of push and pull polys, which would make sense, say like the sandstone bricks blocks, you'll have a bit that comes out here and then a bit that goes in, out, in, etc. So so first up, now something that a bit of a gotcha coming from Modo is that the UVs have been kind of stuffed, basically. So if you go and view it in turn off default material and view it in some kind of hardware texturing mode, it looks like that. So the models are kind of all, the UVs are just non-existent. Obviously the sky that we created in here is fine, but anyway, so what you need to do, so we're going to do it on this building, just do an automatic mapping, whatever. We're not going to use any UV, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so then assign new material, Surface Shader,